Welcome to Petito's Gang. Now, in recent times, we've noticed that there's been a lot of outbursts on social media. So a lot of comments going from senator to senator, and sometimes even governors as well. And that's why on today's show, we discuss the very important topic of hate speech. We find out how and why hate speech has become so rampant in our society. Do we need regulation to tame this? Let's join the gang now.
We're back. It's a big subject before us. Our country is challenged, very, very severely challenged. To go the track of the internet, social media, is really to be beaten up with hate speech. We've had all kinds of wrong calls, roll calls, no intelligent conversation. We don't know what these fellows are saying. We don't know what those fellows are saying. All we see are invectives being hauled across the public space. Why is the public sphere so challenged in Nigeria? Why aren't we able to make intelligent conversation that will enrich all parties to this conversation instead of hate speech polluting the environment? Where did this start? Why is this sustained? Why is it exacerbated in such a way by social media's ascendancy? And can we build a true nation with this level of hate speech being hauled across? We know that more recently it's come to the fore. We talk about Biafra on one side, people from the Igbos live the north on the other side, and so on and so on. But that's not the genesis of hate speech. It's been around for a long time, but it seems to be getting worse. My view, at the heart of it, is the failure of leadership, the absence of leadership. Because leaders set the tone of public conversation. But we seem to be devoid of leadership in Nigeria, and because there's this failure of leadership, every person on the street just picks up a stone looking for somebody else to haul it at. How can we pull back from hate speech and engage constructively in the way that advances the common good of all?
It's debatable whether hate speech is actually increasing or whether it's the reporting of it enabled by social media that makes people think that it's increasing. It's almost like when cable television, cable news in particular, came. The fact that it's beamed into the living rooms of people and repeated on a 24/7 basis created this impression that crime is actually on the rise, whereas it might well be the repeat of it that is suffusing people. That's on one hand. Then the other one is, if you look at what might be the root causes of it, is that as a people in Nigeria, I don't think at the leadership and followership level, we've actually tracked the issue of slurs, gender slurs, ethnic slurs, whatever. People bandy words in the comedy industry. They just throw these things around and people laugh at them. So over time, people don't even know where to draw the line that this is acceptable, this is not acceptable. So it's debatable, but I agree there's the tendency we're seeing in recent time where not just that people are engaging in hate speech, but very, very belligerent about it to the point of if they could see the other person in physical space, they could actually bust the person is the one that is worrying that should engage all of us, because my view is it might actually be getting out of hand and that we need to do something sooner than later.
Those things that we need to do, does it include regulation? Again, as society matures, what you do changes. I remember when I lived in the United States in the late 70s, early days of cable television, as you said, and all of that, the FCC, the Federal Communications Commission, was so concerned about all kinds of communication that they were a watchdog, really awake and alive. At the point they were even getting overbearing, there was equal time was required for views expressed about certain kinds of people. So in the night, television was significant about right of reply and those kinds of things. But after some years, I think those kind of disappeared. Are there any reasonable things that can be done by way of regulation in a society where regulation is often abused anyway? That can help moderate hate speech, or do we just educate people better? And what's the role of civil society? So many people who can play a role in moderating these things, because when you really investigate, the basis for most of that hate speech cannot be genuinely established beyond the fact that stereotypes make life easy. And so if you look at a group of people, you can stereotype them in a way. Oh, these people are miserly. Those people are quarrelsome. Those people are lazy. And those kinds of stereotypes just simplify life for you. So you don't have to think, oh, those people, that's the way they are. Besides what kinds of things can be done to moderate hate speech?
Part of it is to understand where the current outburst is coming from. I like to situate it in the contestation for the political space in 2015. It was characterized by a lot of negativism, a lot of abuse. And part of that challenge was the absence of a manifesto by both parties. They didn't really have ideas. I like to go back to the era of the Zik, the Awolowos, and the Shagaris. They ran proper campaigns, even then, that you could hold Awo to his 4 cardinal points and all that. This last one, the level of political debate was shallow. And because it was shallow, it was replaced by a lot of invectives rather than conversation. So, and then, since then, the bitterness, the rancor that has come from it has grown. Unfortunately, the political leadership did not help matters by some of the comments that have been attributed to our leader, talking about 97 and 5% and all of that. Those heated up but the point is, how do we bring down the tenor of negativism? It goes back to leadership across board, social, cultural, and all that. Leaders are not speaking. Leaders, I do not understand why it's happening. Yes, they're just, we're not hearing them. So, in that absence, you now have an atmosphere where anything goes on social media. As we were just discussing, as I said, this current audio tape that is going on, attributed to some political leaders, was first aired in 2015. Somebody has dug it up, sent it out again, and now put some names to it, all in a bid to foul the atmosphere. So we really must pay attention. So we need leaders across board, including media leadership.
We need to put it in context. Somebody watching might not know what audio tape. An audio tape in which 2 governors, one in the north and one in the southwest, were said to be discussing ethnic issues and dominance and stuff like that. That's fairly well known to people in the Nigerian space. We've talked about legitimacy and how legitimacy is part of why a modern government constantly has to work in the interest of all the people. Because if some of the people feel left out, then protestation gets loud and they can say, we don't want to be part of this union. And that's a signal to the people who run the union that they must act justly in the interest of all. But when you don't have responses from the media, as I've suggested, in pulling out the truth in the conversation rather than the hyperbole and the anger,
the drama of
it. Yeah, the drama of it. Then you get into the kind of situation that we seem to have gotten So can we blame the media? Can we blame civil society?
I think the issue of hate speech is very wide, very broad. And I think that it has been more publicly used now because our leaders have adopted it. I remember a time of Mechi and Ben Bruce going for each other on social media. And I'm sure in the last week or two, you can see Dino Melaye and his governor. So I think if the masses see that their leaders are doing something, they latch onto it. You see senators insulting each other on social media today. And one thing I've realized is that if it is a celebrity like an artist or a musician that insults somebody, masses are quick to attack. They're supposed to be a role model. We should not talk like that. But then our public office holders do that and we turn it into a joke. We laugh about it.
Is it because we think the celebrities, quote unquote, are more value to society than the political leaders?
I see it again, sir. Nigerian masses, they want a new face. So if it's the old face, we're not surprised. Let them go on. Some of us even build our leaders. You know that some people they call educated illiterates. You can go to school, but it doesn't mean that.
I call them certificated illiterates.
So we are not really surprised at what comes out of the mouth of blacks. We're not surprised. We're having a good Monday.
I don't want to be around when you run into him. Let's take a break and come back.
With social media has come free speech. But this speech may seem a bit too free because traditional media has now relinquished its function as the gatekeeper of society. But what do you at home think? Do you think social media has propagated hate speech? Let's find out from you.
When the government is seen that way, it will be reduced. We don't want people that are just striving to get there.
I feel we're all human beings and we're prompt to react to what people give back to us. So if you are heading a state or you are a governor or of any state and you're not doing what you're supposed to do, people are prompt to talk, people are prompt to react to what you give to them because we're all humans. For me, not like I support hate speech, but then it's a 50-50 for me.
When it comes to speaking, especially in the public space, we should speak with a great sense of responsibility that this country is our own and it all belongs to all of us. And before you can, no matter what, you need to have a country before you can even actualize whatever dreams that you have.
It cannot be outrightly wrong, but there are some that are constructive and there are some that are destructive. So, like especially on social media, if anyone does anything wrong, so people will go on social media and be like, what this person did is very wrong. But on the other part, if some people don't even think twice before they start posting on social media, so that's where I will see it from the wrong perspective.
We really are in an awkward position where the institutions of society are not working well enough to filter, these kinds of aberrations in conduct. Like Innocent said, they've always been there, but because of the failure of our institutions, they're becoming more obvious. There will be always people who talk like this, but they were just minorities that were lost in the gatekeeping function of the media.
Yeah.
But because the traditional media and its gatekeeping capacities have sort of been pushed back by social media, you don't have open access that leads to that small group of hate-mongers polluting the environment becoming a major problem.
Yeah, when we talk about media, I think it's important to stress that we're no longer dealing with local media. The social media is a global media controlled in places far-flung from where people are using it. And also the anonymity people think it provides, which is actually a myth. It's not anonymous. People are recording it. Makes it difficult to control because the regular newspapers, their print run, you don't see a lot of it. But it's when you go online, the commentary that people attached to those reports. And that's why it's a global issue. Actually, if you look at all the major social media platforms.
Facebook is literally on trial.
Sure, they are. And they are doing a lot. If you look at their backroom stuff, I can't remember the particular publication I read where each of them have hundreds of staff scoring through what people are posting. And the ones they left out, I mean, we are complaining about the ones we are reading. The one, in fact, there was one particular guy they were interviewing. He said when he goes to sleep, he has nightmares because if the world get to read the things they screen out. So we need to engage them to improve the technology for tracking some of this. I don't know how far they can go because these things go by the second. So we need to engage them at that level. At the national level too, there is something that can be done. Leadership needs to make it an issue. I don't support the whole idea of clamping down on them or using snooping technology. I think we are dealing with human beings, and if people are properly engaged through sheer force of personal example by the leaders themselves, we are talking about an audio, we don't know whether it's true, but if that is indeed what people said and they are holding such a high position, then you can imagine what those who are listening to them will go and do on their own. It goes back to the leadership question we're talking about. Now, it's not even just a leadership question, it's a leadership vacuum. You know, and people are, it's like when a kingdom loses its king and there's a scramble to grab.
No question about that. But now that we have come to where we have come to, and it's not a tidy place, why are people of new ideas not popping up and saying, hey, wait a minute, this cannot go on? That's how many people became prominent politicians in the past. I mean, who knew Mbakwe until the abandoned properties thing? And he stepped into that space and he became a leader. Yeltsin, who would have thought that Yeltsin would be the one who's cooped up on the collapsing USSR?
Russia,
but he stepped on right moment. Why are people not stepping up into the space? Nasser El-Rufai, governor of Kaduna State, tried to step up on the threat to eject some people. Okay, we've gotten different kinds of reaction and all of that, but that was an effort to step. Why aren't fresh faces doing more and stepping up and saying this is unacceptable? We must treat each other with more respect. The dignity of every human person is inviolable, and this is how we. What is it that we have a complete loss of people of character who have enough courage to step forward and set the path right?
I think it also goes back to what people consider as news and what is picked up. I was at an event yesterday by Microsoft. They had this open forum where young people doing amazing things within the technology space showcase what they were doing, and there are so many documentaries around it. Those don't get into the media. It's the bad ones, violence, sex, and all of that are now hate speech that get mainstream media. So it's also the media to search itself about what is screening out and what is hiding from the populace. Because if those youngsters are doing such amazing things, they should be showcased so that those who hide behind these media platforms to perpetuate hate speech will know that there are others who are leading by examples for them to follow.
And I also think it's the issue of ownership. Nigerians don't have any sense of ownership. Most Nigerians don't believe that this country belongs to them. You see nowadays, it should be your Nigerian first before you are Igbo or Yoruba, but no. You are your tribe first before you're Nigerian. So ownership it boils down to values again. People need to feel some sense of ownership to this country.
Let me pick on another group that used to be very important in this, the intellectual class. Thought leadership is really so important in setting the course of any society. It used to be that in the early 80s, the thought leaders that gathered around the Guardian set certain bars and certain things were considered unacceptable. A critique of media gatekeeping, even for this kind of thing, would be something that the Femi Oshofisan, any of those fellows, the Macables of this world, the Delicos of this world, would write about in a way that provided some leadership. But there's a
vacuum.
kind of vacuum of sort for strong thought leaders in the public sphere. You know, Jürgen Habermas, the German public intellectual philosopher, keeps making this point about the public sphere. That is where democracy truly meets its measure. If the public sphere is not one in which you can engage ideas, it can be utopia, it can be checked, and all of that, then really you've got a society without a democracy. And many times I wonder, can we really call what we have democracy? Or is it, as Fela said, them all crazy? Because it seems to be panning out like everybody going crazy. But that is the challenge of this moment. Why are the intellectuals retreating? I mean, I once wrote something about the generation that left town, in which some of Nigeria's finest just thought, okay, we've had it with this country, and they left town in terms of, I met one just yesterday actually, former professor at IFE, formerly has been in America for the last 20-something years or so, and has just come back. But there are many who are in town, but have mentally left town.
Left town.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we've got a big problem.
It's ownership. It's what you own that you fight for. You feel like you don't. That's why I said generation left town. They left it. It doesn't belong to me.
But we can't stay there.
Yeah.
We need to recover what is left of the country and begin to step up. I think the challenge is for all of us, thought leaders everywhere, to step up. Even on social media, I think part of the problem is the dilution that has come from the large number of channels. It's difficult the media platforms are so many now, but we really must occupy that space consciously.
Unfortunately, we have to go. The good Lord said, occupy until I come. Yeah. I think we should occupy, otherwise the charlatans may come.
We have seen that hate speech has become definitely more rampant in our society. But the challenge is for all of us to step up and occupy the intellectual space where we have conversations that stir up change in our society. That's all that we have time for on today's show, but join us next time and be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel that is at Patitos Gang TV. If you want to keep the conversation going, follow us on all our social media platforms that are displayed on your screen right now. Till next time, my name is Fumbi Ogunbawo. Take care.
Is there no one company?